after her husband died. A pregnant woman finally entered his forbidden cabin, believing she would find nothing more than old family memories. Instead, she uncovered a secret that shattered everything she thought she knew about the man she loved. A hidden journal, a mysterious key, and a voice that sounded exactly like her late husband calling her name. For 7 years, he begged her never to open that cabin. Now she was about to discover why. Stay until the end, because the truth hidden behind that door will change everything you believe about love, sacrifice, and reality itself. For 7 years, Evelyn Brooks believed she knew every piece of her husband's heart. Nathan Brooks was the kind of man people trusted instantly, quiet, thoughtful, and endlessly patient. He carried himself with the calm confidence of someone who had nothing to hide. To Evelyn, he wasn't simply the love of her life, he was home. Together they had built a peaceful existence in a secluded valley tucked deep within North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains, where mornings arrived wrapped in silver mist and evenings faded beneath endless forests of pine and cedar. It was the kind of place where life felt untouched by the outside world. Or so she had believed. Throughout their marriage, Nathan asked for only one thing: never go near the old cabin beyond the northern ridge. Whenever Evelyn's curiosity surfaced, Nathan would gently take her hand, kiss her forehead, and smile with quiet reassurance. "It's nothing worth worrying about," he would say. "Just old family records, forgotten memories, things that belong to the past. Some doors are better left closed." His voice was always warm, but his eyes told a different story. For years, Evelyn chose love over suspicion, trust over questions. She convinced herself that every marriage deserved one private corner, one place where the past could remain undisturbed. After all, Nathan had never given her a reason to doubt him. Until the morning everything changed. 3 months earlier, Nathan had collapsed without warning while making breakfast. One moment he had been laughing about baby names. The next, he was lying motionless on the kitchen floor. Doctors called it sudden cardiac arrest, a tragic, unexplained event that claimed the life of an otherwise healthy 40-year-old man. The diagnosis answered how he died, but not why. Now, at 36 years old, Evelyn found herself preparing to become a mother without the man she had imagined raising their daughter beside. Every tiny kick from the baby reminded her of the future Nathan would never see. Every empty chair in their home echoed with memories that refused to fade. Grief had become her constant companion, until she discovered the key. Hidden inside an old wooden box among Nathan's belongings rested an antique brass key, unlike any she had ever seen. Worn smooth by time, engraved with symbols she couldn't recognize. It felt strangely warm against her fingertips, as though someone had been holding it only moments before. The instant she touched it, one memory returned with startling clarity. "If anything ever happens to me, promise you won't go looking for answers." At the time, she had laughed, dismissing it as one of Nathan's strange philosophical moods. Now those words felt less like a joke. "Unsuttemt, twankambindhaif." And more like a warning. Unable to ignore the growing weight pressing against her heart, Evelyn followed the narrow trail leading into the forest. Autumn had painted the mountains in brilliant shades of crimson and gold, yet the deeper she walked, the quieter the world became. Even the birds seemed unwilling to sing. Then she saw it. The cabin? Small, weathered, silent. Its dark windows stared back through the towering pines like unblinking eyes that had been waiting for her arrival. An icy breeze swept through the trees, carrying with it a faint metallic scent that didn't belong in the wilderness. Her unborn daughter stirred gently beneath her coat. Evelyn rested a trembling hand over her belly and looked at the brass key one final time. Deep inside, an unshakable instinct whispered that the man she had buried wasn't the whole story. Nathan hadn't simply taken a secret to his grave. He had left behind a truth so extraordinary that, once she opened that cabin door, nothing she believed about love, loss, or reality itself would ever be the same again. His footsteps stopped just outside the cabin door. 1, 2, 3 slow knocks echoed through the tiny room. Evelyn's heart pounded so violently she thought whoever stood outside could hear it. Instinctively, she placed both hands over her stomach, shielding the little life growing inside her. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. Then a man's voice broke through the stillness. "Who's inside?" The voice was calm, controlled, but unmistakably surprised. Evelyn didn't answer immediately. Her eyes darted around the cabin, searching desperately for somewhere to hide. There was nowhere. The knocks came again. Louder this time. "I know someone is in there." She swallowed hard. "Who are you?" A brief pause. "My name is Ethan Carter. I worked with Nathan." The words struck her harder than she expected. Nathan had never once mentioned an Ethan. Not in 7 years of marriage. Keeping one hand on the latch, Evelyn slowly opened the door just enough to see outside. Standing on the porch was a man in his early 40s. His hiking jacket was soaked with morning dew, and a heavy backpack rested across his shoulders. Wire-rimmed glasses framed tired blue eyes that immediately widened the moment they met hers. Then his expression changed. His gaze dropped to her pregnant belly. For several seconds he couldn't speak. Finally, he whispered, "You're expecting." Evelyn's voice remained guarded. "Who are you really?" "I told you. Ethan Carter. Nathan and I conducted research together for almost 9 years. 9 years. The number hit her instantly. She and Nathan had been married for only 7. Which meant Nathan had known this man before she had even entered his life. Before she could respond, Ethan asked quietly, "Where's Nathan?" The question left her speechless. "What?" "I've been trying to reach him for weeks." He never answered. "I assumed he'd still be here." Tears instantly filled Evelyn's eyes. "Nathan is dead." She forced the words out. "He died 3 months ago?" Ethan stared at her as though she'd spoken another language. "No." He slowly shook his head. "That's impossible. I spoke to him 8 days ago." The forest seemed to disappear around Evelyn. "What did you say?" "I received a message from Nathan. He said the boundary was becoming unstable. He asked me to meet him here today." Every word sent another wave of disbelief crashing through her. "You're lying." "I buried my husband. I watched them lower his coffin into the ground. I scattered his ashes." Ethan didn't argue. Instead, he slowly reached into his backpack and removed a rugged tablet protected by a heavy rubber case. Without speaking, he unlocked the screen and handed it to her. An email filled the display. From Nathan Brooks. Date 8 days ago. Evelyn's breathing stopped. She recognized the writing instantly. Not because of the words, because of the tiny habits. Nathan always placed 2 spaces after a period. He always ended technical notes with the initials NB. Even his punctuation was unmistakable. No one could have copied it so perfectly. Her hands began trembling. This can't be real." Ethan's expression was just as shaken. "I thought he was alive. I came because he said something had changed." He sounded frightened. "He warned me someone else had found the site." Evelyn looked toward the strange wooden box resting on the table. "So the voice, you heard it too." She nodded slowly. "He called my name." Ethan's face lost all color. "He shouldn't have been able to—" "What do you mean?" "The transmission system only activates if Omar." He stopped himself. If what? Ethan looked directly into her eyes. If someone is still alive on the other side. The words hung between them like ice. Neither spoke. Neither breathed. Finally, Evelyn whispered. What exactly was Nathan researching? Ethan closed the cabin door behind him before answering. He looked around carefully, almost as if expecting someone to be listening. Then he lowered his voice. We weren't studying physics. We were studying another version of reality. Evelyn wanted to laugh, to call him insane, to throw him out of the cabin. But she couldn't. Not after hearing Nathan's voice. Not after reading his journal. Not after seeing the impossible email. What you're telling me. Is that my husband didn't die? Ethan's eyes filled with quiet sorrow. I believe your husband disappeared. And someone else? May have died in his place. Before Evelyn could even process those impossible words, every light inside the cabin flashed bright blue. The compass spun wildly across the table. The wooden box began humming with deep vibrations. Then, from somewhere beneath the cabin floor, a powerful impact shook the entire building. Once, twice, a third time, as if something or someone was trying to break through from below. The violent tremor lasted only a few seconds. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the cabin fell silent. Dust drifted from the ceiling beams while the strange blue glow faded from the walls. The wooden box stopped vibrating, and the compass slowly settled into complete stillness. Neither Evelyn nor Ethan spoke. Both were listening, waiting. But whatever had shaken the cabin was gone. Evelyn slowly lowered herself into the old wooden chair, her hands trembling as she rested them over her stomach. Her baby kicked softly, almost reassuringly, and for the first time since entering the cabin, she felt tears spill freely down her cheeks. I don't know what's real anymore, she whispered. I buried my husband. I mourned him every single day. I've been talking to his photograph, telling our daughter stories about a father she would never meet. Her voice cracked. And now you're asking me to believe he might still be alive. Ethan remained silent for a long moment before speaking. I'm asking you to believe what Nathan believed. He walked toward one of the crowded bookshelves and carefully removed a thick binder filled with photographs. You deserve to know who your husband really was. Evelyn looked up. For the first time, she realized she had spent the last several hours searching for proof that Nathan had lied to her. Instead, she was beginning to discover how much he had sacrificed. Ethan opened the binder. Inside were hundreds of photographs taken over nearly a decade. Most showed Nathan standing beside strange scientific equipment deep inside the mountains. Others showed him repairing instruments during snowstorms, sleeping inside the cabin after nights of non-stop work, recording measurements beneath pouring rain. In every photograph, he looked exhausted. Not excited, not ambitious, simply determined. There were no investors, Ethan said quietly. No corporations? No government funding? We paid for everything ourselves. Evelyn frowned. Why? Because Nathan refused every offer. What offers? Ethan turned another page. Several newspaper clippings had been carefully preserved. The headlines spoke of unexplained energy readings, geological surveys, and private organizations purchasing land throughout the surrounding mountains. They discovered unusual electromagnetic activity years ago. They wanted to know why. And Nathan already did. Evelyn looked at him in confusion. So why didn't he tell them? Ethan's expression hardened. Because he understood something they didn't. He pointed toward the map covering the wall. Once the boundary between realities is fully understood, it stops being a scientific discovery. It becomes the most valuable weapon humanity has ever possessed. The word settled heavily over the room. Evelyn imagined governments crossing into alternate worlds. corporations stealing technologies that hadn't yet been invented, military forces exploiting realities where history had unfolded differently. The possibilities were endless and terrifying. Nathan had seen all of it. He wasn't hiding the truth from you. Ethan continued softly. He was protecting you from the people chasing it. Evelyn lowered her eyes. Every memory she had questioned now returned with painful clarity. Nathan insisting they move far away from the city. Nathan refusing promotions that required travel. Nathan installing security cameras around their property while joking about bears. Nathan waking in the middle of the night whenever unfamiliar vehicles drove along the mountain road. At the time, she had thought he was simply overprotective. Now she understood. He hadn't been afraid of wild animals. He had been afraid of people. People searching for exactly what was hidden beneath this cabin. A fresh wave of guilt washed over her. I was angry with him, she admitted quietly. I thought he didn't trust me. I thought maybe... She couldn't finish the sentence. Maybe he had another family. Maybe he had another life. Maybe he didn't love her enough to share his secrets. Instead, he had carried the weight of an impossible responsibility completely alone. For years, Ethan gently placed another object on the table. A worn leather wallet. I found this in one of Nathan's field packs. Inside was nothing unusual. A driver's license, a few folded receipts, several old photographs. But tucked behind them, Evelyn found something that stole her breath. A tiny ultrasound picture. The very first image of their baby. She remembered that appointment. Nathan had smiled the entire drive home. He had insisted on keeping the first scan with him everywhere he went. On the back, written in his careful handwriting, were words she had never seen before. No discovery is worth losing them. Beneath that, another sentence, smaller, almost as though he had added it later. If I have to choose between saving the world or saving my family, I will choose them every time. Evelyn pressed the photograph against her chest as tears streamed down her face. In that moment, everything changed. She no longer saw Nathan as a husband who had lived behind lies. She saw a man who had carried an unbearable burden in complete silence. A man who had willingly risked his life not for fame, not for glory, not for history, but for the woman he loved, and for the little girl he had never even had the chance to hold. At that exact moment, Ethan's monitoring device emitted a sharp electronic beep. Its screen flashed a deep crimson warning. He stared at the display, and every trace of color drained from his face. "They found it," he whispered. Evelyn looked up. "Who?" Ethan slowly turned the screen toward her. 3 unidentified energy signatures were moving rapidly toward the cabin, and they were less than 500 yards away. The warning alarm continued to pulse through the cabin. Beep! 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 Each sharp tone seemed louder than the last. Ethan stared at the detector in disbelief. 3 red dots were moving steadily across the digital map, closing the distance between the cabin and the forest trail. "They've accelerated," he muttered. "They know exactly where we are." Evelyn's pulse quickened. "Who are they?" "I don't know for certain anymore." Ethan admitted. Months ago, they only observed from a distance. Now they're moving openly. That means they've stopped gathering information. He looked directly at her. "They've come to take whatever Nathan left behind." Outside, the wind suddenly picked up, sending dead leaves spiraling across the porch. Somewhere deep in the trees, a raven cried once before the forest fell silent again. Evelyn instinctively stepped closer to the wooden box containing the crystal. Almost immediately, its faint blue glow returned. Not as bright as before, but unmistakably alive. Ethan noticed it too. "It recognizes you." "What does that mean?" "I don't know." He smiled faintly. "Until today, the crystal never responded to anyone except Nathan. The words lingered in the air. Evelyn carefully rested her fingertips against the carved surface of the box. Instead of feeling cold wood, she felt warmth, almost like another heartbeat. Then the glow intensified. The symbols carved around the lid slowly illuminated one by one, forming a circular pattern neither of them had noticed before. The cabin lights flickered. The old radio hissed back to life. Static filled the room. This time, however, a clear voice emerged almost immediately. "Evelyn!" She gasped. "Nathan." His voice was stronger now, still distorted, but unmistakably his. "If you're hearing this, it means the crystal has accepted you." Tears blurred Evelyn's vision. "I'm here!" she whispered desperately. "I'm here." The transmission crackled before continuing. "I don't have much time. The connection is unstable. If Ethan is with you, listen carefully." Ethan moved closer, every word capturing his full attention. "The crossing point has changed. The original location is compromised. They found it." Both of them exchanged uneasy glances. Nathan continued. "Don't go to the cabin. It's no longer safe." Evelyn looked around in confusion. "But I'm already here." Static interrupted the message before his voice returned. "The real gateway was never inside the cabin." Both Evelyn and Ethan froze. Nathan continued more urgently. "The cabin was only a distraction. The true entrance lies beneath the old stone bridge at Black Hollow." Ethan's eyes widened. "Black Hollow." He whispered the words as though speaking a forgotten legend. "That place was abandoned decades ago." Nathan's voice pressed on. "The bridge only appears during the convergence. You'll have one chance. October 15th, 3:17 in the afternoon. If you miss the window, or dear it, the passage won't open again for years." The crystal suddenly flashed brighter. The room vibrated softly. Nathan's breathing became audible through the transmission. "Evelyn?" His voice softened. "If I don't make it back, I need you to know something." She closed her eyes. "No. Don't say goodbye. I've already buried you once." "I'm not doing it again." For a moment, there was only static. Then Nathan spoke the words she never expected to hear. "Our daughter. Tell her. I've loved her since the day I knew she existed." Evelyn broke down completely. Tears streamed freely down her face as she clutched the wooden box against her chest. The baby kicked gently beneath her hands, almost as if she recognized her father's voice. Nathan continued. "There's something else. The condition. I found the treatment. It's hidden where only you can find it." Ethan stepped forward. "The medical data. Did you get it?" "Yes," Nathan answered weakly. "But they're searching for it. They don't care about saving lives. They only want access to the gateway." The transmission suddenly became unstable. The crystal shifted from blue to deep crimson. Nathan's voice fractured beneath violent interference. "Ethan, don't trust." The message cut off. Silence. Both of them stared at the crystal. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Ethan slowly lowered his eyes. "What was he trying to say?" Evelyn didn't answer immediately. Instead, she replayed the final words over and over in her mind. "Don't trust." "Don't trust who?" "The people outside. Someone working with them. Or Ethan himself." The thought struck her like ice. Nathan had never finished the sentence. And suddenly every conversation she'd had with Ethan since meeting him felt different. Too convenient. Too prepared. Too informed. As if he had been expecting this moment all along. Before she could ask another question, a loud explosion echoed outside. The cabin windows shattered inward. Glass rained across the floor. A powerful spotlight flooded the room from the forest. Then a voice boomed through a loudspeaker. "This area is now under federal authority. Step outside immediately with your hands visible." Ethan's face turned pale. He grabbed the wooden box and thrust it into Evelyn's arms. "Listen to me. If they get the crystal, they won't just find Nathan. They'll open every doorway." He looked straight into her eyes. "And once that happens, there may be no way to stop what comes through." The blinding spotlight poured through the shattered cabin windows, turning the dust-filled air into a storm of floating glass and light. Outside, engines idled. Car doors slammed shut. Heavy boots crunched across the fallen leaves with military precision. Whoever had surrounded the cabin wasn't bluffing. They had come prepared. Evelyn clutched the wooden box tightly against her chest, instinctively shielding it with her body as she protected her unborn daughter. Only hours earlier, she would have panicked. She would have looked to Nathan for answers. She would have expected someone else to save her. But Nathan wasn't here. And for the first time in her life, there was no one standing between her and the impossible. Ethan quickly extinguished the remaining lanterns inside the cabin. "They're moving into position," he whispered. "We have maybe 2 minutes." Evelyn looked toward the broken window. Dark figures were spreading through the trees, communicating silently with hand signals. Their movements were disciplined, far too organized to be ordinary law enforcement. One of them carried a device aimed directly at the cabin. "What is that?" she asked. Ethan's expression darkened. "They've adapted our technology. They're tracking the crystal." The realization struck Evelyn harder than anything she'd learned all day. Nathan hadn't just been hiding from curious scientists. He had been racing against people who intended to weaponize everything he had discovered. She looked down at the wooden box. The crystal inside pulsed softly beneath her fingertips. Not with fear, with purpose, almost as if it trusted her. Outside, another command echoed through a loudspeaker. "Final warning. Exit the building immediately." Ethan grabbed his backpack. "We have to leave." He rushed toward the hidden trapdoor beneath the workbench, then stopped. Evelyn wasn't following. She stood perfectly still in the center of the cabin. Her eyes slowly traveled across the room. Nathan's journals, the maps, the photographs, the countless sleepless nights preserved inside these walls. Everything he had sacrificed, everything he had protected, had led to this moment. A quiet strength settled over her. She finally understood. Nathan had never wanted her to become part of this world. He had spent years trying to keep her out of it. But fate had made that impossible. Now, the responsibility belonged to her. She took a slow breath, then looked at Ethan. "No." He stared at her. "What?" "I'm done running without understanding." "Evelyn, this isn't the time. It is exactly the time." Her voice was calm. Steady, stronger than either of them expected. "My husband spent years making impossible choices because he believed no one else could carry this burden." She looked down at her stomach. But he was wrong. The baby kicked gently beneath her hands. A small reminder that fear was no longer the only thing she carried. She carried hope. She carried Nathan's future. And that changed everything. Ethan watched her in silence. The frightened widow who had entered the forest that morning no longer existed. Standing before him was someone entirely different. Someone Nathan had believed in long before she believed in herself. Evelyn carefully opened the wooden box. The crystal glowed brighter than ever before. Its deep blue light reflected across the cabin walls until every symbol Nathan had carved into the wood began shining in response. The journals, the maps, even the compass on the table started vibrating. The entire cabin seemed to awaken around her. "It's responding to you," Ethan whispered. "I've never seen anything like this." Neither had Evelyn. Yet somehow, nothing about it frightened her anymore. She reached out and wrapped her fingers around the crystal. The instant she touched it, a flood of memories surged through her mind. Not her memories, Nathan's. She saw him building the cabin late into freezing winter nights. She saw him discovering the crystal buried beneath ancient stone. She saw him refusing enormous sums of money from powerful men in expensive suits. She saw countless failed experiments, countless lonely nights, countless moments where he almost gave up. But every vision ended the same way. Nathan sitting quietly in their nursery, holding Evelyn's first ultrasound picture, smiling, whispering to the tiny life they had created together. "I'll find a way." The memories disappeared as suddenly as they had come. Evelyn opened her eyes. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. Not tears of grief, tears of understanding. For the first time since Nathan's disappearance, she no longer felt abandoned. She felt entrusted. Outside, the tactical team reached the cabin porch. A heavy battering ram struck the front door. Boom! The entire building shook. Again. Boom! Wood splintered. The old hinges groaned under the impact. Ethan looked toward the trap door one final time. "If we're going, we go now." Evelyn slowly slipped the crystal back into its carved chamber. Then she picked up Nathan's journal. She smiled through her tears. A smile filled not with certainty, but with courage. "I'm bringing you home," she whispered. "No matter which reality you're trapped in." At that exact moment, the crystal emitted a brilliant beam of blue light that shot through the ceiling, piercing the sky above the forest like a beacon. Outside, every soldier stopped moving. Every electronic device suddenly went dark. And somewhere beyond the mountains, a distant voice echoed through the crystal, clearer than ever before. "Evelyn, I found the way back." The brilliant pillar of blue light erupted from the crystal, piercing the dark October sky like a beacon that had been waiting years to awaken. For one breathtaking moment, everything stopped. The wind disappeared. The forest fell silent. Even the armed agents surrounding the cabin stood frozen, staring upward as the impossible light illuminated the mountains for miles. Then the earth began to tremble. Not violently, almost gently, like the slow heartbeat of something ancient awakening beneath the forest floor. Ethan looked at the detector in disbelief. "It's happening." "The convergence has started." The crystal floated from Evelyn's hands. "Odzi." It rose slowly into the air, surrounded by ribbons of blue light that spiraled toward the heavens. Every symbol carved into the cabin walls ignited at once. The maps fluttered wildly. Nathan's journals turned page after page by themselves. The compass spun until it shattered, its glass exploding into shimmering fragments that dissolved before touching the floor. Outside, the stone ridge beyond the trees began to glow. "It's opening!" Ethan shouted. "We have to go now." Without hesitation, Evelyn grabbed Nathan's journal and ran after him. Despite the weight of her pregnancy, she had never moved with such determination. Every step carried only one thought: "Bring Nathan home." They burst through the trees just as they reached Black Hollow. The ancient stone bridge stood exactly where Nathan had described. Only, it hadn't existed before. Two weathered stone pillars stretched across a deep ravine, suspended above swirling blue mist that seemed to flow upward instead of down. At the center of the bridge floated a shimmering doorway unlike anything Evelyn could comprehend. It wasn't merely light. It was movement. Thousands of memories. Countless possibilities. Entire lifetimes folding into one another. On the opposite side, someone stood waiting. Nathan. Older, thinner. His clothes were torn, his face marked with exhaustion, but his eyes were exactly the same. The moment they met hers, tears filled them. "Evelyn." His voice carried across the impossible distance. "You came." She stepped forward instinctively. "I told you I'd bring you home." Nathan smiled. The same gentle smile that had first stolen her heart years ago. "I knew you would." Before either could move another step, a deafening roar shattered the silence. Military helicopters emerged above the treetops. Floodlights swept across the bridge. Armored vehicles surrounded the clearing. Dozens of armed personnel rushed into position. A stern voice echoed through loudspeakers. "Step away from the anomaly, immediately. This operation is under federal command." Ethan's face went pale. "They found us." The commanding officer stepped forward. His eyes never left the glowing gateway. "For years," he called out. "We've monitored unexplained energy signatures across this region." He slowly removed his helmet. "Nathan Brooks." "You've accomplished something extraordinary. We can change civilization." Nathan didn't answer. The officer continued. "Cancer, Alzheimer's, unlimited energy, technology centuries beyond our own. Think about what humanity could become." For a moment, nobody spoke. The offer sounded irresistible. The promise of ending suffering, the possibility of saving millions of lives. Evelyn looked toward Nathan. He slowly shook his head. "You still don't understand." His voice remained calm. "This isn't a doorway we control. It's a responsibility. Every reality is someone's home. We don't have the right to exploit them simply because we discovered a path." The officer's expression hardened. "History never remembers the people who refuse progress." Nathan smiled sadly. "No. It remembers the people who forgot their humanity while chasing it." Silence fell across the clearing. Evelyn realized something profound. Nathan had never been protecting a scientific discovery. He had been protecting compassion itself. Some doors should never be opened for greed. Only for love. The crystal suddenly pulsed brighter than ever before. Ethan looked at his detector. "We're losing the window. The bridge is collapsing." Cracks of blue energy raced across the gateway. The shimmering doorway began shrinking. Nathan looked directly at Evelyn. "There isn't enough time." She refused to accept it. "No. We're going home together." Nathan smiled again. Then his gaze dropped to her belly. "Our daughter?" Evelyn gently took his wedding ring from her pocket, the one that had fallen through the gateway hours earlier. She held it toward him. "You promised forever." Nathan nodded. "And I intend to keep that promise." Without warning, he stepped forward, straight into the collapsing light. The gateway exploded into a storm of blue fire. The force threw everyone backward. Evelyn hit the ground, shielding her stomach. The entire valley shook. Light consumed everything. Silence followed. For several endless seconds. Nothing existed except white light. Then, warm hands gently lifted her to her feet. "Evelyn." The voice was no longer distorted, no longer distant. She slowly opened her eyes. Nathan stood before her. Real. Alive. Breathing. Neither of them spoke. Words were too small for a moment they had both believed impossible. Evelyn simply wrapped her arms around him. Nathan held her as though he would never let go again. He knelt carefully, placing one trembling hand against her stomach. Almost immediately, their daughter kicked. Nathan laughed through tears. "She's already stronger than both of us." Evelyn smiled. "No. She gets that from her father." Around them, the crystal's light softened before dissolving into thousands of tiny sparks that drifted upward like stars returning to the night sky. The stone bridge slowly crumbled into ordinary rock. The gateway disappeared. The impossible had quietly become memory. Months later, on a snowy February morning, a healthy baby girl entered the world. Nathan was there, holding Evelyn's hand, crying harder than the newborn. Before leaving the hospital, they gave their daughter a middle name that carried a meaning only the two of them truly understood. Hope, because hope had crossed impossible distances, defied fear, broken the boundaries between worlds, and finally brought a family back together. As Nathan stood outside the hospital that evening, watching snowflakes drift through the winter sky while cradling his daughter in his arms, he whispered the same promise he had once made in another reality. No matter how many worlds exist, I will always find my way back to you. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries in life are not hidden inside ancient cabins or beyond mysterious doorways. They're hidden inside the people we love. Evelyn spent years believing that Nathan's greatest mistake was keeping secrets from her. But in the end, she discovered a far more powerful truth. His silence had never been born from deception. It had been born from devotion. Every impossible decision he made, every lonely night he endured, every risk he accepted was driven by one simple purpose: to protect the woman he loved and the daughter he had not yet met. Life often asks us difficult questions. Do we allow fear to define our choices? Or do we move forward, even when we cannot see the path ahead? Evelyn chose courage. She chose hope when grief told her to give up. She chose faith when logic insisted everything was impossible. And because of that choice, she discovered that miracles rarely happen to those who wait. They happen to those who refuse to stop believing. Perhaps we all carry our own locked cabin somewhere in life, a painful memory, a broken relationship, a dream we've buried, or a fear we've never had the courage to face. The door may seem terrifying, but sometimes the life you've been searching for begins the moment you decide to open it. Never underestimate the power of love. Never underestimate the strength that hope can awaken. And never believe that it's too late to fight for the people who matter most. Because as long as love remains alive, no distance is truly impossible. No darkness lasts forever, and no goodbye has to be the end. Call to action. If this story moved you, take a moment to let it remind you of someone you love. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes the words we leave unsaid become the ones we regret the most. So before you leave today, tell someone how much they mean to you. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next emotional journey filled with mystery, unforgettable characters, and inspiring life lessons. Now we'd love to hear from you. If you had been in Evelyn's place, would you have opened the cabin? Even if you knew it might change your life forever. Share your answer in the comments below. We read every comment, and your story may inspire someone else who needs hope today. Thank you for spending your time with us. Until our next story, take care of the people you love, cherish every moment you're given, and remember, sometimes the greatest miracle isn't finding another world. It's finding your way back to the people who have always been your true home.